his years. But boy, can he play chess.
Definitely.
And just while we wait for this game to start, we've got... Oh, OK, we have started. I'll come back to this a bit later on, but we saw a really weird opening by Magnus Carlsen.
Really?
1 F3. And we see, look at the bar down there. It's probably the worst move on the board. Magnus, maybe it was a mouse slip on move 1. Magnus already in trouble with white at only move 3, but he's in big
Simon
trouble.
will tell you, actually, it's quite a good move.
Well, I've played it before, British Championships, for quite a long time ago now. Not that proud of it. It was for a bet, and I was quite poor at the time, and it won me a couple of beers. But anyway, I doubt that Magnus is doing it for a bet. But anyway, onto this game. This is straight into the action.
Yeah, mouse slips do happen, so we'll come back to that one maybe a bit later. This game has started as a Slav defense, really rock solid, and wow, this last move surprises me because it looks like White's queen is attacking a pawn. If you look at the B file, White's queen can go and steal a pawn now, maybe even trap that black rook in the corner. But this must be opening preparation from Jordan. He wouldn't play a move like this, such a controversial move, allowing White's queen to go and grab a pawn unless he had things worked out. So the evaluation bar already big time on White's side. Let's maybe not trust it yet because I've analysed similar positions to this, and often computers see that White can go and grab a pawn. White can even win a rook sometimes, but White's queen will be at risk of getting trapped. So computers often need a little bit of time to work things out. And meanwhile, what do we think, guys? Is Pragg just going to go and recapture this black pawn that's just moved? Is he going to maybe bring his bishop out, take that pawn back? We'll see the game stabilise. Or is he going to be really ambitious, not trust Jordan, assume it's a bluff, and is he going to go and grab a pawn on that B file with the white queen?
If I were in Pragnanda's shoes, I would trust Jordan. I would say, OK, I know that you have a reputation as being a theoretician, you come up with dangerous ideas, you're also an active player. I would just capture the pawn with my bishop.
I think that's a much more practical choice because he could probably even know that maybe the other move, queen going up the board, is a good move, but you have to go through a sort of forest of complications to make that work. And
Van Forest of complications.
Van Forest, yeah.
Didn't mean to do the pun there, but it worked out pretty well. So yeah, and the Van Forest, but yeah, I mean, so it's kind of a critical moment already. But the safe move is just to take it with a bishop, right, and just play some chess. David, I mean, you like playing critical moves, though, really, don't you? And I'd feel that you might grab the pawn with the queen. Would you?
Yeah, I mean, if this were a long game, a classical game, I would probably invest quite a bit of time here trying to work things out. And if Pragg feels he has maybe a kind of a way out later, so maybe not going all in. So, for example, if we pull up the board just to show what might happen. OK, he's not trusting anything here. He has grabbed a pawn. Look at this, the queen jumping forward, trying to trap this black rook in the corner, and Jordan's knight coming forward. My point was, if Pragg here feels he can just run away, maybe escape, maybe take this pawn on the way out, maybe take this pawn, and if he feels it's pretty safe, then why not get greedy? Why not just go for the most critical move, force Jordan to be the one being accurate? But if he wanted to be safe, as mentioned, then this move is also fine. But I like the way he's played. He's not trusting his opponent, and in this position, maybe there are drawbacks to whatever you do. Maybe if you take this pawn with a bishop, maybe your queen will start to get hit. I'm not quite sure what the idea is here. Maybe the queen on the way out might run into some trouble along this line. And here, at least, Pragg has to continue calculating. I don't think you should move the queen again yet until she does get hit, because then you just lose a bit of time. I don't really see the idea from Jordan, though, to be honest. Look at these black pawns. They're super weak.
I mean, I think black can also gain a tempo by moving the developed knight, unleashing the queen at some point. So that
for example,
possibly, move that towards to the white queen. I mean, I've had this kind of position before, actually, very similar, and black can generate quite a lot of play on the queen side if you're not very accurate. Maybe this is unsound, but at this time limit, it seems like a very interesting choice from Jordan. And as you mentioned, he loves trying out new ideas. So again, a great opening start to this one.
Yeah, really exciting position already. And in the game, just to catch up, this pawn was pushed, attacking the bishop just retreated. So Jordan, remember, he did help Magnus Carlsen. He was part of the Carlsen team for the World Championship match, and the whole reason he was hired is because he comes up with these kind of weird, creative ideas that computers initially hate. But for humans, they're hard to handle. So will this position be hard to handle for Pragg? He doesn't even think that much. He just pushes a pawn, committal, attacking this bishop, And Jordan replies instantly. This is the thing. Computers might hate this position for black, but Jordan has it all worked out. If Pragg doesn't find the best move every single time, he might be in trouble. The knight does jump into the center, as Simon mentioned, hitting this knight potentially. And if the bishop does get captured now, then you can't take this knight yet because your rook falls in the corner. Queen takes rook. But first, you just move your rook across, attacking this queen maybe, and next move you might think about taking this knight. Also, there will be ideas in this type of position of trying to trap the white queen, bringing the knight forward, aiming for a nasty check, but also this queen now, no squares at all. Really complicated.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is why the practical choice would have been to not take that pawn with a queen earlier on, but this is the very brave, optimistic choice of a young chess grandmaster, isn't it? And Pragg is a young chess grandmaster. He's just also won the Reykjavik Open, which is a really strong competition. There was 300 players, there was something like 40 grandmasters, and he did fantastically well to do that only a week ago or so. So
You were there, Simon?
I was there. Yeah, luckily I didn't play Pragg, but I lost to a lot of other chaps. But but it was but he's playing great chess, so he's very, very confident, and he's got to calculate his incredibly accurately now. He could just get in trouble. Brave choice.
Yeah, and that's the problem in rapid chess. I mean, I love the fact he's not trusting Jordan. He's going for the critical moves, maybe even the best moves. But yeah, in rapid chess, you don't have the time necessarily to work things out. And already it's complicated. If you do take this black bishop, you're walking a really fine line. You're walking a tightrope just to survive even maybe with white. So despite what the computer says, Pragg has to be accurate. And maybe it's time to try and run away with the white queen before it's too late.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, though, the position is, regardless of whether you take the bishop or not, it's going to get complicated because suddenly those ideas that you highlighted with the black pieces, you know, jumping the knight forward, potentially trapping the queen, ooh, it looks scary because the white king is a little bit loose. It's still stuck in the center.
Yeah, White's basically forgotten to develop all his pieces, forgotten about everything apart from using his queen. And I know a lot of players, when they start chess, they just want to use the queen. She's the most powerful piece. Just bring her out, capture everything, get greedy. It's like hungry hippos. The queen takes this pawn, then this pawn, then this pawn. But it does backfire sometimes.
I can relate, though. Yeah.
If you get your queen trapped, you do end up regretting that kind of strategy. So, critical moment. Look at Jordan's clock as well. Up on time.
We could also have a little question for the audience because we were discussing earlier. Someone said that Jordan looked like a famous Hollywood actor. So I don't know if anyone can come up with the same answer that we came up with.
Yeah.
I don't know if you missed that conversation. So, but someone pointed out an actor they thought was quite similar to Jordan. So
and when they said it, we all said, "Oh yes."
Once you know, you can't get it out of your mind.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, tweet us using the hashtag #ChessChamps.
Who do you think Jordan van Foreest looks like?
I think I was in the makeup chair when this conversation happened, and I heard a Hollywood actor being mentioned.
Yeah.
And
it's quite similar. I mean, it's not a spitting image, but it's really, you can see it. You can definitely see it.
Definitely, yeah. If you think you can see who Jordan or whoever you think Jordan van Foreest might look like, tweet us. Maybe we agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And talking about tweets, I do have to share with you a selfie from Abhishek, who is watching the show. But get this, he's also trying to manage the Indian Premier League in cricket, chess, and of course, a toddler at the same time, multitasking at the highest level. So a big hello to Abhishek.
Yeah.
And if you two want to send us your selfies, then you can do so by tweeting us using the hashtag ChessChamps, and we will try and feature them on the show.
Look at Pragg, he's leaning forward now. Just looking at his eyes, he's calculating variations. He's saying, OK, if the queen goes here, my opponent will do this. The queen runs, my opponent will do this. His eyes darting all over the screen. But look at his clock time as well, down to 8.5 minutes. He's basically got half of Jordan's time.
Wow.
So yes, Jordan might end up a pawn down in a complicated position, but 1 pawn or 8 minutes, which would you rather have? It's not clear, right?
Yeah, especially as the position's still very complicated and black's pieces are going to fly out very easily. The white king doesn't really seem to have anywhere safe to go because Pragg decided to push that pawn on the right-hand side of the board. So where does the white king go now? Wherever the white king goes, it's going to have some open lines. Black's king can go to the right-hand side, castle very safely, practically speaking. And people forget about this in modern-day chess. They just look at the computer assessment and they think, oh, you know, obviously black is losing. But in a practical sense, when two human beings are playing, errors occur. And this is why I love chess like this, because it's not perfect. And I think some of the imperfect things in life are much more interesting. Like, you know, Mona Lisa's smile, you know. So they make it more interesting for us humans in certain ways. And this seems to be the way that Jordan is going about this. So, it's, yeah, fascinating position.
Perfectly imperfect.
Yeah.
On Chess24, there's this fascinating video series kind of behind the scenes of Team Magnus for the World Championship match. And I think the reason Jordan was chosen and the reason Dubov were chosen is because they're just so good at finding these positions that computer hates. But for a human, it's so difficult to navigate. And whoa, look at this from Pragg. You could have taken a couple of pawns. There was even a bishop on the side of the board you could capture. But nope, he just ignored all of that and he just pushed a pawn on the side of the board. So slow, such a quiet move. Yeah. But he's taken away that b4 square from the black knight, from black's dark square bishop. So covering squares, but losing time. And suddenly the evaluation bar back to the middle. The momentum may be on black's side now.
This has shown that the plan has pretty much been OK for Jordan, I think. And maybe there could be a draw possibility with a rook just attacking the queen multiple times. I very much doubt that will actually happen, but this is something you have to look out for, because black would love to swing the queen down into the game, which you mentioned earlier you can't do at the moment. But
so he can't play queen takes knight because he needs to protect this rook in the corner. So one idea you mentioned, rook across one square. Where does this queen go? That's the question. Does she run to the side when she might continue getting harassed by the rook, or does she step back this way, getting greedy, taking some pawns? There is one escape route. You could bring her back to safety potentially. But yeah, there are other ideas Jordan could implement. He doesn't really want to move this bishop off the side of the board because if it steps back away from the attack of the pawn, we'll just see a trade, and this will only help white, who is going to be a pawn up once these guys drop. So yeah, question back on Jordan. The more I look at it, the more I think, okay, actually it's pretty safe, this last move by Pragg. Maybe it's a good practical decision, just pushing forward, taking this key square away from the black knight. And also, as we mentioned, maybe even more importantly, bringing the bishop out now is impossible. This would have been a nasty pin, but this square now controlled by white's pawn.
Maybe you just have to move the rook and then bring your queen to take the white knight. Just try to keep the momentum up. This is one of those positions where it feels like, again, that tempo, that energy we saw in the Magnus Carlsen game. As soon as you slow down, your position might lose that energy it's got. So this would be the critical approach.
The acid test now. And black is temporarily a piece up, but the black bishop on the side of the board might fall. I'm not sure whether you should capture this knight yet. In the middle, loads of options here for Pragg. Loads of options for Jordan as well. But if this bishop does get captured, we could see black maybe trade off a set of knights here. It's so hard to even find moves, to be honest, for both sides.
Maybe bishop b4 here.
Yeah,
I mean, just for the hell of it. I mean, I don't know if it works.
But, away, but at least now you get your knight to an empty square.
It's only one square, but I mean, you know.
What do you think about this this move that's actually being played by Jordan?
Okay.
Weird move.
It is a bit weird. You expected, and I expected as well, that the rook would attack the queen, but instead he just.
Yeah, he could have attacked the queen. Instead, he's gone to a square where actually the black queen is still tied down to it. Now the idea is, if the black bishop's captured, you still can't go and grab this knight because the black queen needs to defend the rook next to her. But instead, I think Jordan wants, okay, we're going to see this happen. Jordan wants to step his rook forward to a safe square. The queen only has one escape route now. She has to go to the side of the board, and now black would take this knight. And the whole reason Jordan put his rook on this kind of weird square is that he defends all of his pawns. So, okay.
Seems a bit funny to be greedy now, doesn't it? I mean, you've given up a pawn earlier on and you're playing this line to save a pawn. Yeah. It seems to, again, go against the ethos of the position in some ways. No.
And, yeah, look at this rook now, just a purely defensive piece. I pointed out in the previous game, rooks are not meant to be defenders. And he could have had his rook on this file. He could have had his rook here, pointing down at white's position. But instead, now this rook, not a great piece. And the question is, what can Pragg do in this position? He will maybe go pawn up, but if he does run back and take this pawn with his queen, black does have ideas of his own. Black can step back and capture this pawn. We could see a situation where it's actually level material, but black has ideas of getting into the white position. White's king, as Simon mentioned earlier, long term is most likely weaker than the black king. There's nowhere that this king can ever find that's safe, whereas black's king later in the game can hide behind its own pawns. So, OK, Pragg instead choosing to capture with his bishop. Let's go back to the players. It's really, really heating up. And I think the clock might play a big factor.
Yeah, I mean, Jordan van Foreest, he has so much time on his clock. He has to start thinking at some point. And let's hope that moment is now, because we're going to head out to the lounge. Sverre is actually standing with the coach of young Pragnananda.
I'm here in the lobby with Ramesh, which is Pragnananda's coach. And how is it for you to be present here and playing in Oslo in a tournament like this?
Yeah, it's really very exciting for a young Pragg to be playing against these giants and also over the board, not the usual online he's used to.
You're being modest. You're talking about young Pragg being here with the big guns. But first of all, he started with a win today. He's in a good position right now. Yeah. He's coming in here expecting to win his matches, doesn't he?
Basically, like our philosophy, we don't try to have an aim before the game. We just want to go out and play a good game to the extent possible. So that way he doesn't get into too much of a pressure, because sometimes it happens like when there's too much expectation and the position doesn't match the expectation, it's easy to collapse. So we generally try to just go out and play a good game.
And is that also an aim for his development, to become a better chess player?
Yeah, eventually he wants to become a world champion. Whether that is possible or not, it's still a long way to go. But the thing is, like, the approach we have taken is like to have a reasonable shot at the world championship title. He still has to learn a lot. He has to improve in many areas as well. So we're trying to focus on those things, getting better in many areas. And in all these games he's playing against these strong players, some issues keep coming up every once in a while, and we try to address them and get better in those areas. So basically we are focusing on making him better in as many areas as possible.
And a world champion.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's fantastic to have Ramesh, such a notable chess coach here in Oslo, of course, following Pragg. We did have a few moves, the bar. Okay, it's happening, stuff.
Slightly on black's side. Yeah. I don't think it's a game-changing advantage here. There's still a lot of life left. I think it's just all to do with the kings, to be honest. Black's king, if you compare it with the white king, super safe, just guarded by a wall of pawns. White's king, no matter which way it goes, this is what you said, Simon, earlier, right? No matter which way the white king goes, it's going to come under some heavy fire. And temporarily, white is a pawn up, if we do a quick count. But the pawn structure is a bit weird. Both sides have weaknesses. So I don't think the material here is so important. It's more important the king's safety. And here I'm expecting Jordan maybe to bring his rook into the game. Black's rook next to his king can come to the open b file. Maybe the black knight next to the black rook in the center of the board can start jumping around, start trying to find ways into white's position. Also, if we compare the queens, both of them are on the sides of the board, but white's queen, not really threatening anything. Black's queen is just poised, looking towards the white king, making it feel uncomfortable. So just a lot of small factors potentially adding up to that black advantage that we see on the evaluation bar, but Jordan still needs to be accurate and creative.
Yeah, I mean, maybe you can try to do a pawn break as well at some point. Push one of the pawns in the centre of the board to try to open up white's position even more. Black's pieces seem to have quite a lot of potential. Yep. Those knights that black has, if he could start getting them jumping around, could start creating some nasty threats. And the time situation, well, OK. I mean, Pragg's still got enough time there, I'd say.
He's got enough time. Pragg just under 6 minutes, but Jordan, 11 minutes. He must be enjoying this moment. This is a very Jordan type of position as well. He loves to attack if he can. He's not materialistic in the slightest. No. So.
And, well, Simon, I have to tell you, you asked and Twitter did answer. So you said, you know, your question was, who do you think Jordan looks like?
I'm very interested in the answers.
And Ali Reza Sabag says Chris Pine, which I think is a good one.
Oh, who is that again?
He plays Wonder Woman's
boyfriend,
interest.
yeah.
Okay. Chris Pine?
Chris Pine, right. Yeah. If you Google him, he is quite famous.
Wow, there. Oh, yes, I agree.
Similarity. Joanne Doid, he says that Jordan van Foreest looks like Zac Efron, which was the name that I heard whilst I was in the makeup chair, and I was wondering how did he get into the conversation. And the Black Knight actually improves itself, and Reza says Jordan van Foreest looks like Richard Madden from The Eternals. I can see that.
Okay.
So some
I have
good
to,
answers.
Madden, I have to read up on my celebrities.
That's some pretty good names,
From
isn't it?
Game of Thrones as well.
Ah,
it's not-
well, we thought Zac Efron.
We
Yeah.
did, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they were good names, weren't they? You wouldn't mind being compared to any of them. It wasn't like Shrek or something, you know. It's like, you know, give him a good Hollywood name, you know. So,
These are handsome guys. I also heard someone yesterday mention Nate Archibald from Gossip Girl. I kind of agree on that one as well. Celebrity from Foreest. Maybe it's all these celebrities looking like Jordan from Foreest, of course.
yes, that's right.
Yes.
And the game's still manoeuvring about here, but not much has changed, David.
Not too much has changed, no. Pragg just trying to plug all the holes in the white position with his light squared bishop. That light squared bishop alone doing quite a good job, actually, of covering squares, but still, if it's that piece against all of Black's army, it's not going to be easy. I think maybe Pragg's idea is the white queen now does have a route back. Maybe the white queen wants to park herself in front of the king just to protect everything. Jordan, again, just this small window where he can start to create threats. Maybe Black is able to overwhelm white. I still love bringing that black rook to the B file. If you have an open file, why not occupy it with a rook? What else? Maybe pushing pawns forward to open up lines. You advocated for that, Simon. This is the type of position I would hate to have against you. Well, I would hate to have the white pieces because it just looks like the white king is going to come under heavy fire. And
I mean, you might even better go knight takes pawn and try to at some point throw it into, you know, G3. But you know,
take the pawn on the edge of the board.
It looks
White does have two Harrys. Two Harrys are better than one.
Yeah.
Not
Wow,
those pawns.
Yeah, get rid of the. Okay, he's played your move.
This is
very
very natural.
logical. Yeah, get another piece into the game.
Do you enjoy that, having double Harrys? Or is double Paul?
More Harrys, the better.
Yeah.
You know, give me 4, give me 5. I'll be a very happy man. Just put them all on the H file. I'd happily just push them all over. So actually, I do prefer getting rid of them. I prefer like opening up the rook. So I prefer like sacrificing the poor guy. He's a brave soldier, but you know, just get him out of the way. So.
Yeah, and I love that previous angle where we could see the screen. Jordan has it full screen, his board there, and we saw him drag the rook across.
I actually heard, my friend was telling me, he gave me a bit of advice for these online events, and he said, like, I have quite a big screen at home, and he said, you have too big a board. It's just too big. He said, you should have a small screen, because it's further to move the mouse, right? So when you're in time trouble, you have to, like, you know, I'm like a bit old school. I'm like dragging the mouse over here, dragging it back. But I could be doing this. I could be like, you know, I'm saving myself. You know, I'm getting a good exercise, but I'm doing too much arm movement. So I thought that was
that's a good
interesting, actually.
point.
You know, just have a smaller screen. But you're very strong, David, at these online events. I mean, you play a lot of them, and
I prefer smaller.
You go smaller screen as well. So,
Especially a lot of the events I play, there'll be blitz or bullet chess where you don't get any extra time after every move, so you need to save those extra kind of milliseconds.
Yeah.
So yeah, I very much prefer the smaller boards. But then again, these players, they do gain 10 seconds after every move, so I think moving the mouse, they should be used to that. It's not too big a deal.
okay.
But yeah, I mean, at this top level, though, this is the kind of thing the players will be thinking about, just tiny margins, because they're all so good. They need to find the extra edge, and different players have different preferences. Meanwhile, okay, Black's rook move onto the B file was met by White pushing pawns forward. So look how open both flanks are. That White king is not going to be safe castling either side anytime soon. And Jordan, after a trade of knights, plonked his other knight into the center of the board, resulting in another trade. So White still one pawn up, remember, but look at Black's queen, perfectly centralized, hitting White's rook in that corner. And what to do about it? White's rook needs to move. I don't think you really want to castle here. I like that suggestion as well, Nicholas Holt, another lookalike. But yeah, still, despite what the evaluation bar says, Pragg is the one answering the questions right now. And if he can answer them, though, maybe Black's running out of ammunition. The Black rooks can't really get in the game. Black's bishop not doing too much yet. So okay, still can go either way this game.
I mean, there's one thing that kind of just jumps out to me, and that is that the white queen is off on a limb there on that square. And I'm just thinking, if I were Black, you know, once White has defended the rook, maybe I would try and cut her off.
Yeah, very interesting idea, and just bring the rook up.
Yeah.
You can also try to get the Black bishop in, start creating some threats. I'd be more comfortable playing Black here because it's an easier position to play when you've got this active queen. Maybe, as the computer indicates, Pragg is better, but you've got to be very accurate in such a position. One bad move with the white pieces, you lose. You play one bad move with Black, okay, you can still continue. So it's more pressurised for Pragg to find the right moves here.
Yeah, just to show your ideas, this black rook move would cut off the white queen's kind of route back to safety, back to protect her king. There's still a lot of calculation to be done. For example, in this position, you have to calculate what happens if white pushes forward and white goes on the attack. I'm not quite sure it's working because white isn't attacking with too many pieces, and black is perfectly centralized here. But either way, interesting concept. And the other one Simon mentioned, bringing the bishop into the game would actually create a threat due to this pin of queen takes pawn, a deadly check. So definitely lots of ideas, and Pragg actually spending more time here. He's down to 3 minutes against 9.
Can he try to move his king and centralise his queen? Because I remember in the first game, he hasn't done that. He's just moved his rook. Okay,
that's really clever, Simon. Maybe moving the king forward and just connecting the rooks and making them defend each other.
I'm learning for you, David. You did say, get the queen in the centre, keep it solid. So that's what I was trying to do. Get the queens off.
And Pragg wasn't listening, though. That proves the walls are soundproof here in the Oslo arena. And,
maybe he just thinks we're rubbish. Probably more likely. But,
maybe he hears our suggestions and he thinks, OK, anything apart from that.
Yes, that's right. None of those moves.
And, OK, black's bishop just on this square. So actually kind of nullifying the white bishop on this diagonal. Maybe preparing, it's a bit
and maybe
slow,
the other pawn break as well,
Maybe preparing this one or this one. Okay, there are some definite ideas, but Simon and I were surprised because it did look like maybe bringing the rook forward was more dynamic and more aggressive. Instead, this move, a bit of defense, a bit of attack. I'm expecting white now to either bring the queen back or maybe, okay, he brings his rook forward, attacking the black queen, and the reason I reacted there is because it does allow a check in the corner. This looks a bit nasty. But then again, you can maybe just block with your queen. You can bring your queen the whole way back and just offer a trade because white is a pawn up after all. White has these double harries. White does have the extra pawn.
The double harries, very nice. All right. This one, young Pragnananda, he won the first one. He is up by 1 point in the match. Magnus Carlsen, he won the first game against Duda. He started out with a very strange opening in game 2. We're curious to hear if that was a mouse slip or if he had planned something very strange. We'll take a look at that later. The bar, though, is still over to Jan Christoph Duda's side in that game. Hansen and Giri, they played a draw in the first game and a quick draw in game 2, still tied. Erik Hansen and Anish Giri and Liam Le and Shahriar Mamdiarov, they played a draw in game 1. And in this one, I think the bar is slightly over to Mamdiarov's side. Could he be about to win with the black pieces? That would be a great result for him. But we are following Pragnananda against Jordan van Foreest, as we see Shahriar Mamdiarov in deep thought, deep concentrations, looking very good in the Oslo arena against Liam Le. But Jordan van Foreest now starting to think as well. Do you think Jordan is keeping a close eye on Pragg's clock, trying to just surprise him to spend even more time?
Yeah, it's human nature to have one eye, at least on your opponent's time. You've got to make sure that your decisions aren't affected too much. For example, you don't start just playing subpar moves, inferior moves, just to try and trick your opponent. Because if your moves aren't good, after all, your opponent does gain 10 seconds after every move. They will maybe neutralize you, maybe just refute your ideas and win. So you've got to find that balance. Tricky chess, but also strong chess. And he'll try and get Pragg to think, but the clock isn't yet critical for Pragg. Okay, Jordan instead jumps in with his queen, attacking white's bishop, which retreats to a defended square. So Pragg was actually thinking in Jordan's time there. Very good stuff, and he keeps everything defended. Black's queen looks great, to be honest, but what to do next? That's the question.
Yeah, black doesn't have many open lines. That's the problem. I mean, you've got one active piece, and Pragg is defending very well here. Luckily, his pawns block up the position, which is very useful for him when he's got the extra pawn, stopping black's rooks getting in to the game here. So
black's bishop as well, just staring at a wall of pawns.
Yeah, that's why I'm surprised it went there.
And I'm a little bit surprised as well because it does look very attractive to put the queen there, the black queen that is, on that particular square. But at the same time, Pragnananda's move is great because the white rook is threatening to attack it, and whoops!
And we saw Zac Efron shaking his head there. He's not happy with his last few moves.
Yeah, I mean, if I was Zac here, I'd probably unleash C5 or something. Well, I don't know. I'd think about a move like this. I don't think it works, but you've got to look at breaks like this.
I think that was his plan, actually. Maybe Jordan wanted to push the C pawn. Oh, I said Jordan. Whoops. But yeah, he wanted to push his pawn. But white's rook in the corner would have actually come across 2 squares, hit the black queen, and the black queen, she dived into the position. She realised there was nothing to do, and now she's retreated. So maybe Jordan just losing a move there.
And this be a big loss as well because he lost the first game. So if Jordan loses this one, he can only draw at the end of the 4 games. So it's important.
Yeah.
And
Zac
Jordan.
Efron.
Yeah, Zac Efron going for those white H pawns now. Black's queen wants to go across and capture some of those pawns, but I think Pragg has a really important move here, a really nice, simple move as well. Bring the white queen the whole way back. Park her, there we go, in front of the white king. And actually, that white queen indirectly defends those white pawns on the right side. If the black queen had gone across and taken those pawns, white's rook would have jumped out the way with a check, and black would have lost a queen. So Jordan doing the right thing, opening things up. This is what he has to do. But still, Pragg in control, and he's either listening to music, Pragg, or he's just really happy with his position.
Yeah.
He's rocking back and forth. It looks good for white.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's in less danger now, especially because there's been so many trades on the board. And I do like what Jordan is doing, you know, putting the rooks on open lines. He's getting ready to double the rooks, put pressure against the white bishop. But I do think that Jordan is now just, he's trying to get the compensation to survive, as opposed to before when he was pleasantly better.
And now that king is also trying to find a safer place. So there's not really many weaknesses in white's position now. That's the problem. Previously, there were some issues with the black queen coming in, but now, you know, where is the weakness? And it is an extra pawn at the end of the day.
Yeah, and that's a really classy move, this last king move. At the very minimum as well, white's bishop can kind of drop back to the square the king previously sat on, just defend everything. I love my bishops on those squares. There's just no breakthrough for the opponent. And yeah, the longer Jordan is a pawn down, now that there's no direct attack, the more uncomfortable he will feel. And if the queens come off, I think white will win this game. So a queen trade benefits white. Rook trades probably help white as well. Bishop trades, I'm not 100% sure. But either way, Pragg, he's kind of up the speed and he's looking very, very confident.
And if Pragg wins, actually, just got a message from our stats genius, Ty, saying that if Pragg wins this game, his tour rating will pass 2,700 for the very first time. And that would be a great number for young Pragg.
Yeah, wow. He's heading in that direction in classical chess as well. He's already...
Can barely fit on the seat, can he? Sort of, you know, he sort of seems to be just there. But
Yeah.
When I first played him, his feet barely touched the floor. He still beat me, but...
Well, he became an international master at the age of 10 years old.
Wow.
And that's just incredible.
Yeah.
He's the youngest international master ever.
Yeah.
And Jordan is really kind of struggling a little bit in this position. One thing that I just wanted to point out is that Jordan shouldn't be in a big rush to try to win back material. Like, for instance, you know, move the bishop from its central location to attack the rook and a pawn, because whilst that does look like, yes, you get something back, on the other hand, your bishop is out on a limb. It's in the middle of no man's land. So once the rook moves, bishop takes pawn, well, the bishop is doing nothing and can maybe even get trapped.
Yeah, and suddenly white can go on the attack. White's bishop can step forward, maybe hitting this pawn in conjunction with the rook. And as Jovanka mentions, this bishop is just a bystander now. You definitely don't want to kind of poorly coordinate your pieces. You don't want to just strand one of your own pieces on the wrong side of the board away from the rest of your army. So, yeah, we're not expecting that move. And also to point out the other one, this pawn looks like it's up for grabs, but it cannot be captured because rook takes pawn is a check, and also what we could call a discovered attack, hitting the black queen. So after the king, for example, takes the rook back, queen takes queen, and white will win. So, okay, nothing to do with that queen after all. Black just steps back with her. And knowing Jordan, it's mostly because he wants to push pawns. He wants to kind of initiate some play, maybe kick away this strong white rook, but retreating is never a good sign. Maybe white now can just move this bishop to a safe square. Maybe the white king can... Okay, the bishop does indeed drop back. I highlighted this one earlier just as a very safe move. Look how everything protects each other now. And at some point, white can start thinking of trading off the queens. It's looking good still for Pragg. One pawn up, and that's why the computer says roughly +1 advantage for white.
Yeah.
Seeing all these suggestions for lookalikes for Jordan van Foreest, that's popular, Simon, your suggestion to ask for lookalikes for Jordan van Foreest. Many people agree with us. He looks like Zac Efron. Do you guys have any celebrity lookalikes?
I tried this thing where it kind of gives you your celebrity lookalike, and then it gave me a man. I was not impressed. So I was like, okay, I'm not doing this.
How about you guys? You have one,
I
David.
do. He's an English comedian called Phil Wang, and I got mistaken for him once on the Underground, on the Metro in England. A group of girls came up to me. They were like, "Oh, well done today. You were really great." And I'd just come from a chess tournament, so I was like, "Oh, thanks." I'd won the chess tournament, so I was feeling pretty proud of myself. And then they asked for a selfie, and afterwards they were like, "Oh, thanks, Phil."
So you gave a good selfie. That's cool. Yeah.
But it turns out he's actually into chess as well.
Oh, that's cool.
Didn't he tweet or something as well?
Yeah, he tweeted about chess, and we've been chatting on Twitter. It's,
Bill Wang.
Buddy.
That's cool. And you have one as well, Simon.
Well, maybe a little bit like, is it Giant Spain?
Yes.
Or like, he's got longer hair than me, but he's a great actor. So
Former Giant Spain, the very cool guy from Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones, and he's Norwegian, right? As
Yeah,
well. So
he is.
he's a really good actor. So it's not bad. Yeah, I'll take that.
And
so,
good looking as well.
We had him as a guest as well on our charity challenge last season. Meanwhile, a couple of moves, White's king has run away to safety, but in the meantime, Black has used that tempi to go and grab some pawns with his queen. So now Black's queen restored material parity by grabbing a pawn. She's also attacking White's rook at the bottom of the board. I guess Pragg has an idea here. What is it? Is he just going to move that rook, challenge Black's kind of control over the open file, or is he going to jump forward and gain time against this Black bishop? Suddenly the Black queen, earlier Jovanka, you mentioned Black's bishop doesn't want to end up on that square because it's a terrible square. Suddenly the Black queen is on that post, and oof.
This is quite
a threat for Black.
Yeah, it's quite a normal way to try to transfer one type of advantage to another. And this seems to be what White's done here. He's really given that pawn up to activate his pieces. And OK, where is it? Well, the queen has to go to the square.
Only one square. That Black queen had to go here, as Simon mentioned, because she has to also defend her bishop in the centre of the board from White's rook on the 5th rank. So now offering a queen trade. To trade or not to trade? What do you guys think?
I mean, if you do trade, you want something concrete in the position. You want to try to win material or get something quite big out of the position. Who's attacking? I mean, it feels like White has this open line against the Black king. So if you are attacking, generally you want to keep the queens on the board. But I can't really see a great square to move that queen. I mean, maybe towards the king side.
Oh, wow.
We'll keep the queens on.
Yeah, maybe. I mean,
yeah, maybe keep the queens on. I was about to say I thought I saw a tricky tactic. It doesn't quite work. Bringing White's rook to the centre of the board, breaking connection. But OK, the queen trade did happen. Pragg under 1 minute. Maybe that influenced his decision to trade the queens. Keeping the queens on, more ambitious, but also maybe more risky. So, OK, a queen trade. And now will White start to try and target those 2 weak Black pawns on the queen side, on that left side? There we see Jordan. Is he going to start pre-moving? He's got 3 minutes, a lot of time. Will he be dragging the Black bishop back into the game? Next move, Pragg pushing a pawn forward. I was going to say there is a tactical idea behind this one. If we see a trade of pawns, White's rook will recapture, and the White bishop at the bottom of the board actually wants to come over to the square the rook currently stands on. Look at the 2 Black rooks. They're both on dark squares. White's bishop can attack them both at the same time if given the opportunity. So Pragg setting up a trap here. Jordan has to be really careful.
Yeah, definitely Jordan has to tread with caution, but I'm not a fan of this move, actually, because, you know, that pawn that advanced itself, the B pawn, well, it was kind of holding the Black pawns at bay, and it was making them weaknesses. If Jordan manages to eliminate this pawn without getting into danger, then I think the position will probably peter out into a draw.
Yeah, the question for Jordan now is, he's feeling pretty safe. The queens are off. He's 1 point down in today's match. Is he going to even try and win this one somehow? I don't see how, to be honest, yet. But if we do see a trade of pawns, for example, if he can somehow trade off all the rooks and just keep 1 extra pawn for Black on this left side, long term, maybe some chances for him. Jordan, every time I play him, even if it's an endgame, even if it's a dead draw, he's always looking for small tricks here and there. And now down to 2 minutes, he needs to move.
I kind of agree with you, though, Jovanka, this move that Pragg played. I mean, it looks really scary, but it's the kind of move that either works or it doesn't work. And it's the kind of move that you probably wouldn't see Magnus Carlsen play, right? I mean, he would only change the position if it has a very big effect. I mean, but saying that, what does Black do? I'm not entirely sure.
Maybe you could just trade off a set of pawns here and then drop Black's bishop back to the C3 square. Right. Just try and trade off the bishops.
Just try to swap, yeah.
If you can trade off the bishops as Black, I think you're completely safe.
Yeah.
Even if you end up with 1 fewer pawn if you separate the boards into halves right now, on the right half of the board, white has a 4 versus 3 advantage, but doubled pawns, if it's just rooks, they're not that great. So I think that would be the safety first option for Jordan. Maybe he's looking for more. That's why I was saying if he's feeling ambitious, he'll look for something else. I think that's like the backup plan for him. But suddenly the clock situation, Jordan also down to 1 minute.
Yeah.
And often that favours the side who's been in time trouble for longer. Just as a time trouble addict myself, my whole career, often I'm low on 1 minute for the whole game, but I'm in that rhythm. I'm used to playing quickly. Someone who's had an hour on their clock the whole time, as soon as they get down to 1 minute, they panic because they're not in that same flow. So, okay, we do see a trade of pawns, and now the bishop does drop back. And, okay, this trade means that the game most likely is heading towards a draw.
Okay.
White has a small advantage because black has a weakness over on this left side of the board. I don't think that pawn is so great. Yes, it's a pass pawn, but what do you think, guys?
I mean, it should be a draw, right?
likely.
I mean,
Yeah, I
at
think
this
so.
level,
I mean, if black manages to swap off a set of rooks, I think it will be an easy draw. Well, with the presence of all rooks on the board, I think maybe Pragg can have some fun and try and grind it out.
Yeah, we saw on Jordan's screen, he's about to push a pawn. Okay, he made it just as I was about to say. He was about to push a pawn next to his king to create some luft, create some air for that black king in order to escape. No back rank checkmates anymore. But this does mean he's abandoning all hope on the queen side. That black pawn is about to fall. First, Pragg goes and attacks the pawn himself. And, okay, giving up a pawn, but black's idea is to bring one of his rooks back to the 5th rank later and look at Harry the h-pawn.
it's not so easy to hold this. I mean, because white has this pawn in the middle of the board, the e-pawn, and when you've got, well, you're a pawn up for a start, but you can use that pawn at some point to roll down the board. Jordan hanging on to his pawn now, though. Can he save that pawn? I don't think so, but well, maybe he has.
Yeah, and it's not just about whether this black pawn will fall, it's just about whether the other black rook can get active when it does fall and start targeting white's weak h-pawns. And one thing about rook endgames is computers often say white has a small advantage, even if it's just a dead draw. So yes, white might end up with an extra pawn, but white's 4 versus 3 on the right half of the board. It's so hard to create a pass pawn.
But I like Simon's idea, though, of slowly pushing forward with the central pawn and trying to open up the 7th line. Yeah, and we should listen to David.
No, I don't know.
I
mean,
I agree. I mean,
would rather
as
be
white,
white too.
you'd have to
Yeah.
play on with white because you are a pawn up.
Yeah.
So you've got to make it as tricky as you can. But at the end of the day, it's probably just a draw.
he's given up all hope,
yeah.
Pragg, of winning. Now, black's pawn did fall, but look, white's h